As the city prepares to celebrate the undisputed progress that has been made since the last time the Cuyahoga River burned, it also provides the perfect time to look at the legacy of the environmental movement.
Yeah, from water to air to land, it has affected our everyday life. And this News 5 original, Jordan Vandenberg, shows us how the city approaches the demolition of vacant properties.
They are monoliths to what mankind can make, and monuments to what happens when they leave. Once home to people and products, now parasites draining resources and property values. They are.
It is a spiritual experience.
Cleveland's ghosts.
Every building, every structure has a life. It has its own story. Some, a residential structure may have been a family raised there for the past 40 years. An industrial building may have been some type of chemical processing plant for the last 100 years, and you just don't know.
It's Ayanna Blue Donald's job to find out. As the director of the city's Department of Building and Housing, she says of the 4,100 vacant and abandoned structures in the city, 150 of them are commercial or industrial. For many of them, the environmental hazards are not fully known until the demolition process begins. Those hazards can be both obvious and hidden.
Sometimes a building may come out clean. Other times they may have to spend $500,000 just on the environmental remediation of a building.
So a lot of the progress we see in Cleveland, I think, would not be possible if we still had the water we had in '69.
Just as it had a dozen times before the Cuyahoga River burned. But in true Cleveland fashion, the city's people and its leaders took the oil-soaked blemish as a bastion for change.
We were able to take advantage of it. In a sense, that was a good thing. And we said, you know, let's use this fire to say never again. And that's what's happened.
The Environmental Protection Agency was created, the Clean Water Act was passed, and eventually the way we approach these vacant industrial buildings changed forever.
That's, I think, where the movement has shifted over time, is we have to make every single neighborhood, right, environmentally friendly for that neighborhood, but again, for the entire ecosystem. So when we think about buildings like this and all the investment that our building and housing department puts into that, to raise these and to make them environmentally friendly is critical for development, but also for the environment.
I never know what I'm going to find in a building. I never know what potentially may be in the ground.
Called environmental assessments, the city tests for volatile or toxic chemicals and materials on the property and its soil early on in the demolition process. That process is protocol, and it's what they did here.
I'm just ready for the whole corner to be cleaned up.
At this overgrown eyesore on Woodhill Avenue that will come down later this year.
This building specifically has been identified because it's in the footprint of safe routes to school within 1,000 feet. And additionally, it's right adjacent to Opportunity Corridor.
As was the case in this building, sometimes the owners stop paying taxes and walk away. Sometimes the city can acquire the property and hold it for development. And unfortunately, sometimes the buildings are used to house illegal operations, like this one on Wentworth Avenue. A fire broke out at the unpermitted fluorescent light bulb recycler last year, prompting concerns of mercury exposure in the surrounding neighborhood. The EPA would later spend an estimated $2 million to clean it up. The remediation and demolition of an industrial building is never quick, nor is it cheap. Blue Donald says her office has to be judicious in what buildings they target.
A demolition on a huge building also could be, the demolition portion could be $500,000, not just the abatement. So, and that's a lot of money. $1 million on one industrial commercial building is about 100 properties, because the average cost of a residential demolition is $10,000.
They are Cleveland's ghosts and remain part of the city's past. But through redevelopment and remediation, they too can rebound, just like the Cuyahoga River.
We have such a rich history.
City officials tell me with the progress being made on the residential demolitions as part of the mayor's Safe Routes to School program, the city will have additional resources to tackle these large-scale industrial buildings. In the Tech Center, Jordan Vandenberg, News 5.